Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Well, it's Memorial Day, Anita, and this is our third time trying to start this recording. We've had some problems.
I think we're being haunted by the ghosts of Jason and Scott past. Go away, guys.
Leave us alone. Do not interfere with this podcast. Or
let us just record. I have about 30 kids outside of my bedroom right now, so it might be a little insane.
Okay.
In your ears. We'll see.
We're used to that. It's fine. Well, a lot's happened this week. We maybe have some possible content warnings.
Yeah. We want to talk a little bit about what happened this week with the school shooting. So if that's something that will be sensitive to you and you need to take care and maybe skip ahead and not listen to that, then we will understand that. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, Mel. So as probably all of you have heard, there was a shooting in an elementary school this week in Texas. And it's just tragic and awful. And I think that we can all identify with those feelings of just such loss and tragedy and not feeling like you're ever going to be okay again. But did you hear about how the husband of one of the teachers who was killed died a couple days later from a heart attack?
Yes. My mom actually told me this, and then I was frozen and she made us turn off the TV for the rest of the day.
Which is probably wisdom, but a lot of people were really surprised and shocked by this. But it's a thing, you guys. I wonder how many of us felt like right after our person died that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to keep like breathing, and our heart would just stop because it was so painful.
Yeah, I think probably majority of us, I would say. And I can't imagine having a school shooting on top of losing your person at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, it's too much.
It's so traumatic, too, the way that it happened. It's just something that's kind of very nightmarish. But in the first 3 months after your spouse dies, you have a higher chance of dying yourself. Like, that's in the research literature. So we know it's a real thing. And broken heart syndrome, also a real thing. So I think for maybe some of the widowed community, it was like, yeah, of course. That's not that surprising.
So for those of you who are in that acute time since the death and you feel like you might die of a broken heart, the pain is real. And also, as time goes along, you get used to dealing with it. It doesn't bring the person back, which is stupid, but you learn how to kind of navigate that. So just know you're not alone. You can have different feelings at some point, and it's normal to feel like you can't make it anymore. But you will.
I was also thinking about how important it will be for people who have gone through similar circumstances to reach out to those who are going through it now. Just like in the widowhood community, it's like you reach a certain point and you want to reach back and say, like, help the people who are just going through it now. So I hope that they can find a community. What an awful reason to need a community, but I hope that they can connect with each other and find support and solace in one another with other people who have gone through that same circumstance. Oh, Mel, it just makes me sick to my stomach.
Me too. I have an unrelated to that story, but related to our whole podcast death vibe thing. That
okay, tell.
So I was driving on the freeway today and I saw this billboard and it just said defy death. And it was one of those where I just drove past it really quick. And I think it was an electronic one, so it went by really fast too. And I was like, that is exactly what is wrong with death and society. People don't talk about it. They want to defy death instead of realizing that it's a thing and realizing that it can happen to you. And the more that you defy or deny or just think that you are immune to this stuff, it's going to be worse for you when the time comes. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm curious what the ad was for, but you probably didn't see it because you just saw the words.
I didn't. I just was like, okay, we should talk about that. That's maybe unhealthy.
That is an interesting idea. And I think, people use it as a way to say that you're brave, but also facing death is brave also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about that with guests. Some people will say things like, they fought so bravely and they never gave up. And that kind of, I don't know if that's an accurate statement because people fight. And then there are people who say, I'm going to choose to let myself die now. And that was not a very good way I just stated that. But there's like this feeling that if you don't fight to the end, then you're not brave or you're not, trying to live your life the best way. But also, like, death is going to happen. And sometimes it is the outcome that will happen. And so accepting that is also really brave, I think.
You know how when people say somebody rescues a child from a pool or something and then they get interviewed on the news and they're like, you're such a hero. And the person's like, no, I just did it. I think when people say to us, oh, you're so brave, you're so strong, we're not thinking in those terms. We're like, I had no choice. What's the alternative?
Right.
Well, I guess there always is an alternative. You could take your life into your own hands. But for the majority of us, it's like, it's just, you are just breathing and you just keep going. And you're not doing anything powerful or really brave. You're just there in the little micro movements of the day. So it's such a weird thing. Anyway, I don't want to say defy death to anybody because I think it's stupid.
Because eventually you can't. Like, everybody is going to die.
Well, unless you're Evil Knievel, and then you're like, I will defy death. I will defy this gap.
Isn't even Evil Knievel dead, though? So
yes,
defy it.
Yeah. Go ahead and defy death,
life.
And you will be dead. Anyway.
At the end of your life. Interesting.
Well, Anita, your kids are out.
Yes, they are. Summer has begun for us, and I got those chore charts ready. I've had a pep talk with myself every minute of every second of every day. And we're going to see how this is going to go. I went to 6th grade graduation last week, and it was so hard to sit through, Mel. It was really, really hard.
Wait, was it because it was sad or it was boring?
It was not boring. That was not the issue. It was emotional to sit through, not because Jason wasn't there, but because the path that my kids have had to take has been so complicated by death that all of the people are like, and this person has straight A's, and this person got to fly to the moon because they're an astronaut, and this person scored these high tests, and this person has never been tardy, all of these accolades and things like that, and just sitting there and knowing that that's not our reality. I mean, my kids have really struggled in school, and it's been really hard. And just watching one of my kids sit there and see on his face that he recognized that he was not special in that moment was really hard to sit through.
Oh, that makes me sad.
It was really sad, and it's hard because you do want to recognize those kids who have done really well and have worked really hard and have achieved all of these things. And I'm like, well, their dad didn't die. Although one of them, their dad did die this year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's just really hard. And then there was a lot of talk about how the parents have really stepped up and made it so the kids can succeed. And, I'm like, this parent hasn't. This parent is just, we're doing the bare minimum. And then kind of feeling like I've failed my kids in the moment is hard. And then I have to step back and be like, don't talk to yourself like that, Anita. The certificate that they got in 6th grade is not going to make or break or mean they're successful or, but it's still hard in those moments.
This parent is doing a podcast, and this parent is helping other widows go through things too. And I'm sure there are a lot of widowed parents that are feeling the same things as you. So yeah. I'm sorry, and it's stupid, and you're doing great, and then you probably don't want me to say that.
No, it's okay. I want you to say that.
Oh, Anita, you're doing great. So great. I don't know anybody that can do what you're doing. Seriously. I couldn't do it. It's weird for me. It's like, because we were married, 2 years. And I've been a widow longer than I was married to Scott. I just am like, what in the world is my life? And I don't trust anything. Because it's like I've never had anything last long enough to have a length of time behind it. And so it's like that's been the pattern of my life not with friends, but like as far as partners. And so I'm like, maybe this is me, the cat lady. Like, should I ever trust anything again?
It's like you've been living on top of quicksand for a long time. It's like you haven't been able to stay in one place because it's like, oh, now we got to move because otherwise I'm going to get swallowed into the earth. And
yeah. Also,
no stability.
Being a widow and helping my mom be a widow is very tough.
Mm-hmm.
And our husbands have headstones right next to each other. Like actually
and
touching.
My husband doesn't have one at all yet.
Yes. One day we might be able to talk about you getting one, but maybe that day's not today.
I keep giving myself deadlines and then they pass. So it's terrible.
Well, okay, good luck.
I'm going to head to the cemetery this weekend, Mel. Are we going to go for you?
Let's go unicorn vomit, Scott.
Okay.
You can see my dad's headstone too, next to Scott.
Are you? Okay. And you've got a plan for him too.
I made a bouquet of tennis ball flowers that were sticking there. We cut holes in tennis balls, wrapped these dowel sticks with green stuff, and my mom made little petals. And we're putting them at his grave. Don't you think that's so my dad?
Yes, and it's so your mom, too. So
yeah. And I know it's like the cemetery stuff is like for the living, because the dead people, they don't care.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Yeah, and my kids were asking about Memorial Day, and they were like, what is it? And I was like, well, technically it is to not celebrate, but memorialize, to think of the people who have died in wars and conflicts. And we have lots of friends whose husbands or wives have died in military conflicts. But we've kind of taken it over, and we use it as a day to remember all of the people in our lives who have died, but like give a little special remembrance to the people that the day is for also.
Yep.
Guys, come join us in the Widow Wives Club. It's a private Facebook group, really great group of people, great community. Just make sure that you answer all the questions, and we'll get you in there.
Yes, we would like you to be in there, and you have to prove that you're not a scammer, and we're sorry that that's how the world is now, and I like to always research scammers and the new things, and it's just so many things, or they're new all the time. There's so much out there, so if you do try to apply and we deny you and you get mad at us that we ask for proof, go watch a couple scammer documentaries. Maybe we'll see you back. Or not. There are plenty of widow groups out there that don't require anything. Just please be careful if you are in those, because we've seen a lot of kind of nefarious things happen in those. So just protect yourself.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Don't click on links. Don't give anyone any information.
If you guys want to keep the podcast going, come check out our Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows listeners to help the content creators keep content creating. And those content creators are like podcasters, for instance.
Yes. One of the things that you get if you decide to be a patron of ours is a shout out in episode. Now, at the $10 level and up, you also get ad-free episodes. And at the widow wife and dead husband level, you get even more perks, like behind the scenes content, a special piece of merchandise, and many more things. So consider checking it out. Check it out at patreon.com/WWDN. And we are going to do our shout out right now.
First, we're going to shout out to our secret dead husband. And in honor of Memorial Day, we're going to say, off we go into the wild blue widow.
Hey, am I the
Flying high.
I'm the blue widow. My hair.
You are the blue widow.
Constance Dahlbeck.
David Kelly.
Don Satterwhite.
Gail Bell.
Ivan the Misner.
Kat.
Krista Waite.
Love you. Maya Glasser.
Sim Finlayson.
Amber Vela.
Amy Hartman Martell.
Amy Neal.
Amy Sapp.
Ashley Hahn.
Barbara Schneeberger.
I feel so good that you say her name so good.
Thank
Brittany
you.
Pedro.
It's fun. Chris Steffen.
Christina Shiflett.
Cindy Wilkerson.
Danielle Catterberg.
Not a Debbie Downer.
Dennis Brazo.
Jean Marie Massey.
Jenny Taylor. She's one of our Gold Star widows.
Jennifer Beal.
Jennifer Brown.
Jennifer E. Hassel.
Jenny Wang.
Carol Schultz. Welcome.
Welcome. Kelly Ford.
Kirsten Stromberg Klosson.
Lauren Old.
Leslie Webb.
Judy Malkin.
Lou Klosson. It's your episode today. Also, welcome as a patron.
Marie Hoffman.
Mary Catherine Anderson.
Patricia Wiest.
Rachel Barbosa.
Sarah Morris.
Sylvia the New Widow Shore.
Taylor Snyder.
Karen Cornejo.
Vicky Spitt.
Anna Tracy.
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson.
Sydney Raynaud.
Dawn Barber.
Debbie Fells.
Deborah Westwood.
Diana Becker.
Emily Toledo.
Eric Vandermeulen.
Aaron Posick.
Gabe Lozano.
Gia Benoit.
Gina Haas.
Ian Sini.
Ilianabel Ruiz.
Jacqueline Coyley.
My mom.
Jenny Armstrong.
Jenny Barrow.
Jocelyn Milo.
Julie Stevenson.
Karina Jacobo.
Kathy Murray.
Katie Radcliffe.
Kara Scara Rar.
Kevin Ferry.
Chris Morgan.
Laura Bradbury.
Laura Keeley.
Yes, Lindsay Kanaka.
Lori Farrington.
Marjorie Lewis.
Mary McGowan.
Megan Montague.
Melissa Bowers.
Melissa Hancock.
Missy Schubert.
Peter Rukavina.
Becky Ziva.
Robin Flam, welcome.
Hi. Sarah Kennedy.
Stacy Saywert.
Sunshine Haven, love you too.
Tammy Teravist.
Tara Wallace.
Happy 3rd birthday, Piper. Valerie Packer.
Ooh, interesting.
It's a dog.
And, yeah, okay. And finally, we're going to say...
Wham bam, thank you, ma'am, Wendy.
Wow, okay. Thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. Like, how can we say thank you enough? I don't think that we can, so thank you a million times over.
If you don't want to join the Patreon but would like to help support the podcast, please consider buying us tacos at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And if you don't want to do any of those things, just give us a rating and review. It's like the easiest way to help support the podcast. No money, no dollars.
It is true. All right, Anita, this is a good one. We get to meet Lou.
Yay, I'm so excited. All right, let's do it. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're 2 young widows, and we're just trying to figure out widow
We
do
now.
All right, Mel, should we introduce our guest?
Yeah, our guest has many names.
Yes. Her name is Helen, damn it, Lou, Louise, like that, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, and now my friends have abbreviated to Hal Quack Lou. Yeah.
Tell us what your name is, Lou. Like, why are you Helen/Lou?
So Lou is short for Louise, which is my middle name. And I decided about a month after losing Rick that, well, if I'm going to be a widow, I might as well go with the name I like and not Helen, because that is old lady name. I mean, I'm named after 2 generations of Helens, and it's a family name. But Louise goes way farther back. And also on the Chinese side of my family, we have a precedent of changing names after a traumatic event.
Interesting.
What? Yeah. I don't know if it's a family thing or all of them.
Your ancestors are speaking through you.
Well, at least my aunt is. So my aunt had scarlet fever at 5, and then bam. So I think it's for like superstitious reasons, like so the bad karma won't find her again.
Yeah.
And then my cousin went through hard times and then switched her name too. I'm like, precedence, and prefer Lou. And also that was, in case I ever write a book, that was the name the 2 of us picked for me. So plus Lou feels like way more of a badass. Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's pretty
Lou
cool.
feels more badass.
Helen is a grandma name. It was my grandma's name. So
Oh, but also Louise is a grandma name too, though, don't you think?
Which is why I go with Lou.
can we talk about the first time we came across Lou?
Yeah.
It was kind of the best, and I'm sorry that you have a dead person, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
But you were so hilarious, and all of the things that you were saying were so funny and right on and just hilarious. So that's all I have is you're hilarious, and we just want to know who you are. You are like this unicorn of hilariousness, making your ancestors proud. So tell us where you live.
I currently live in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and that's where we've lived as a couple for most of our relationship. Prior to that, I was in Stamford, Connecticut, and that's where my family's been for about 100 years. But also prior to that, I was born and raised in Taiwan until 6th grade, because that's where my mom's from. So I am both, like, my dad's side's been here since like colonizer times, and then my mom's we are sort of immigrants. So that was fun.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's a person from Connecticut called? A Connecticutter? A Connectican?
I have no idea. I've been saying Connecticutian because it's just fun, but I don't know if it's accurate.
Connectican?
I'm going to look it up.
Kite.
Connecticutite?
Connecticutite.
All right, guys, are you ready? Are you ready? The actual answer is ding, 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 Anita, Connecticutter.
A Connecticutter. Okay, well, yes. Okay, so back to where we were. You are from half Connecticut, half Taiwan, and tell us more.
And so that's that is part of my widow superpower, being from somewhere else, because I grew up bilingual and I went from living in a place where we predominantly spoke, I spoke Chinese 90% of the time. My dad was the foreigner and I was a white person. And then I took a 24-hour plane ride to some place we only ever vacationed. And then all of a sudden, I'm Asian. The primary language I spoke was 90% English, and my mom was the foreigner. So that whole like paradigm shift at such a young age, because kids are resilient, as you know, we're fine. We're going to be fine. Let's just change the world. We're going to be fine. But that was something that I recognized as a widow. So that's part of my story, because I've never really fit or belonged, that I spent most of my life kind of figure out who I am. So a lot of times when widows become widows, they're like, oh, who am I? I already have that answer. So I think that makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, then I came here, went to college for a little bit, decided to quit college and join Greenpeace. And my mom's like, you are 5'2". The whales will eat you. They don't care if you're going to help them. Like, plus people can kidnap you. So she decided to have me work for her friend one summer at their small video production firm. And that was kind of how I ended up meeting Rick. So I did that for about 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And then burnt out, because 14 to 16-hour days, good for like your 20s and 30s, but meh. And I decided to go to massage school and become a massage therapist. Part of why I left video production was I'm like super progressive and kind of like more fringe, I guess. So I was editing this video for marketing purposes, and it hurt my soul. Like, there's no such thing as clean coal. You just put a filter on it. That was the project. And I'm like animating little like clear water drops, and it's all a lie. And I just want to help people feel better for a living. And I went back to Taiwan for my grandmother's funeral. And my aunt gave me acupressure. And I'm like, ooh, I want to do that. And then I came back, went to massage school, and then I've been doing that since 2011.
I have another question. How are your thumbs?
They're good, yeah.
Okay, good.
Because I don't use it a lot at work.
Good.
And sometimes I use the thumb pad to massage people, so they're massaging me while I'm massaging them. Pro tip.
Pro tip. Thank you so much, Lou. Okay, so you mentioned this Rick character and that you met him producing things. Also, if we needed you to like do some production that made us look better and was like lies, could you do that?
Oh, totally. I can make lies on video.
Okay, good.
You guys, that's the power of editing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it once and I'll say it again.
No, I mean, the last time I did it was over 10 years ago, but if I have that old technology, I could totally make lies.
Okay. Cool.
How old are you right now, Lou?
I am 43.
Okay.
Awesome.
So let's find out about Rick. Can we?
Yeah, what was his job?
Well, we met, let's see. When I met him, he was a certified audio tech and also worked at a tech job at the local library where he grew up. And then he transitioned to a full-time library worker and loved it. And then about 10 years ago, he was diagnosed with depression, clinical depression and all that stuff. And so we decided, you know what? why can't he be a house husband? And if I make a lot of money, he could be like a trophy husband, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
So, yeah. So he was my house husband for the last 10 years, like the director of entertainment, and
Love
kept
it.
me smart. Yeah. So he was like, it's so heavy, right? At this, because I'm thinking about, for some people, all they know it or all they will ever know of him is what I say right now. And I'm like, he is everything. He's just, imagine the perfect person and then like multiply it by 1,000,000 for someone like all of this, which you've only seen like the best part on my posts. So, but he was just really smart, kind of a Renaissance man. He was a metal drummer.
Yes.
He walked around with beats in his head, and that's so much of who he is. So I really miss him walking by and tapping out a beat on my shoulder or my head or my face or my back or on the table. Like, he walked to the beat of his own drum, and he also like was interested in so many things, which kept me really smart. So he knows that the Indo-European language, you can tell a migration of the Indo-European language by like which culture has the word horse in it. I'm like, what? So he was kind of some of my fun fact guy. And I go to work, come home, and he's like, oh, I just watched this college lecture and blah, blah, blah. So then that's how I ended up listening to podcasts, because I'm like, I gotta catch up. He's getting smarter than I am, and that is wrong. Because we are an equal family, like perfectly equal.
Very egalitarian, yes.
Yeah. Like the first time I met him, so he was the new AV tech that came to, my mom worked with him. Let's go back, at a pre-production and duplication company. And then my company did mostly post. So he would take the raw footage, bring it over to me, and then we would edit it and give it back to him. So when he first walked up to the company, we're like, ooh, new guy. I'm like, he's so cool. And then my friend, his boss, throws an annual 4th of July pig roast. So we went there, had a lot to drink, talked for about 5 hours. So I met Rick about a year and 2 weeks after I was sexually assaulted, which is why I'm familiar with the concept of post-traumatic growth. So one of the first things he said to me as like more than work was, I was walking around the beach. A friend of mine was asking, no, how are you? And I mentioned I felt like garbage. So one of the first things he said to me was, listen, I couldn't help but overhear what you said. And I just needed you. I know we're not friends, but I needed you to hear it from someone our age, from a guy, that you are not garbage. You're just a victim of a crime and a survivor of a crime. And then I was like, holy shit. And looking back, it's amazing because he is so shy. Like, he's not the type that will go up and say that kind of stuff. But he also came from a family of really strong women. Like, his grandmother was the first chemist at DuPont. Female chemist at DuPont. Right? Like, there were other ones. Yeah, that was when I fell in love with him. Like, from first sentence. And then we talked for about 5 hours by the beach and made out some because we were drunk. But we talked about everything you're not supposed to. So we talked about religion. We talked about politics. And then he's like, okay, there's something I need to confess. And me, being drunk and inappropriate, said, do you have VD? And he said, he was totally thrown off. So after he laughed, he's like, no, but I don't know how to say this, but I'm a feminist. So of course I high-fived him, like, because, toxic masculinity, you don't want to admit to that. So then within 3 months, we moved in together. Like it was June 30th. And then we disagreed on when we moved in because he wrote out the rent checks, but so he should know the date, but I always pretended that I was 3 days off because he's the one that remembered dates and anniversaries. And sometimes I'll remember and just pretend I don't, just to get under his skin and see how much I can get away with because relationship test. And he'd always pass. But so we either moved in together the 4th or the 7th because I don't remember which one's true.
But you get to choose now.
I know, right? So I think I'm just going to go with the 6th.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like a third date.
It is decided.
Yeah. And we just had he was a primary part of my post-traumatic growth the first time around. So he asked me questions like, so what do you want to be when we grow up? And what kind of friends do we want to have? Like, who do we want to be as a couple? Like, what's our favorite pastime? Apparently it's Star Wars. I lost that one. But, he's also a big brother, a really good big brother. And he has 3 brothers. And yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of boys.
Yeah. The Y chromosome is strong in that family. Yeah. Even then, there are 3 nephews and 2 nieces. So, yeah, he was just magic. I don't know what else to say about him.
You're worried that people are going to listen to this and maybe not know Rick fully, which of course they can't because this is just a snippet of his life. But I am drawn to Rick from how you're describing him. Like, I feel a connection to him and am drawn in by your story. So, good news. You're not failing. You're doing a great job of telling us about him.
Also, good job, Rick, for knowing what to say and knowing what not to say and for being a good human. And I'm super bummed. Like, as I'm listening to your story, and I feel this a lot when we talk to widows who are now our friends, it's like, man, I want to get to know their person. Their person was so cool.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. So, Lou, I'm so sorry. Can you tell us what happened? Why is he not here?
So, at first, I thought it was indigestion from wings that I made the night before. Because it was quarantine time, and I made everything from scratch. Then he woke up the next morning, and he's never up at 5 a.m. But he was, and I heard. So he's like, I don't feel good. My stomach is really, but this feels really bad. And I said, do you want me to call an ambulance? Because you never say this feels really bad. And he said, well, it's COVID times. Let me take a shower first and see if I feel better. So he goes in the shower, asks for some water. I bring it to him. He says, thanks, babe. The shower turns off. I hear a thunk. And that was it. CPR. Ambulance came, and within a half an hour of being at the hospital, the doctor came out and said, there was internal bleeding. We think it was an aortic aneurysm, except that's not how they said it. They said it some way that it wasn't clear, like he's gone. I'm like, gone where? Like, do we need to go to radiology is what I was thinking, right?
Yeah.
And then about a few minutes of talking to the doctors later, I was like, wait, are you quacking telling me that, like, he's dead? And he said, yes. I was like, oh. I'm like, my mother-in-law is on her way here. That's how I knew. Well, that's part of how I knew. They asked if I could drive. And then the sirens weren't on. When we followed, I'm like, well, they're not in a rush. Oh, shit. He might be dead. Yeah. And I double checked. Like, they're like, oh, do you want to see him? It might be kind of gross. I'm like, I've seen him at his worst. Like, oh, this was worse. But I put my head on his chest and he was definitely not there. The doctors were right in this one.
Yeah.
So that happened.
Okay. So that's just so bizarre because, Like, you don't feel good and then you're dead.
Yeah.
Like, you have a tummy ache.
Yes.
Did they figure out what it was for sure? Was it really an aortic aneurysm?
Yeah, it was. He had arterial sclerosis that we didn't know about, and he didn't show any symptoms.
Yeah.
Like, there was a twinge once in a while. Like, there was one time he swallowed a piece of a fork, and he's like, oh, I think the fork is in my stomach. And maybe that could have been like the beginning of it. I don't know. I do tend to stay up late and overthink. Like, was there anything? That was the only thing I could think of. It might have been that plastic fork.
But at least it wasn't, at least it wasn't your made from scratch chicken wing.
Yeah. It was really good. Baked wings.
Was it? It was good, at least.
Yeah.
He had good last meal.
I guess. It wasn't even his favorite, though.
You guys, Jason's last meal was Chuckarama, which is
that's
just
the best.
The worst. No. We went there as a joke, and then he died the next day.
Like, had it been a couple days earlier, it would have been homemade bao buns. Like, I would have been proud to say that as a last meal, you know? Like,
wow, really? I want to come to your house, Lou. She can acupressure you and feed you. Like, what is the downside here? I don't
it's
know,
a mess.
Well, I can deal with that.
Okay, so Lou, your sudden death are like us. You're in shock, but you also have resilience training from a lot of things in your life. But you can't really sidestep any of the grieving process. Will you talk to us about what it was like after going through all you had in your life? Now you have your husband that is suddenly dead. What was that like for you as a survivor?
Yeah. So initially I got stuff done. He was an organ donor. So, the interview, Anita, that sucked. My mother-in-law came and brought me straight to her house. And then we just snuggled. COVID be damned, right? And then his uncle, who at the time lived with his mom, brought me food constantly. And I was busy making arrangements. He had wanted a Native American burial, but we were going to work on that next year. So he wants to be one with nature. I was working on talking him out of it. So we've talked about what it would be like if one of us died. Because I'm the type of girl who in high school was like, well, we're all going to die, but we're not all going to get married. So I planned the funeral before the wedding, So that was kind of you
need to run the world. Can I just say that?
We've left nothing unsaid. So I knew and I felt him around me all the time. And so the beginning few months, I was just looking for signs. Because I knew that even though I also do trauma-informed massage on top of the more orthopedic work as well. So I had a list as long as my arm of what to do in grief. Oh, so I decided to do a cremation and got a treasure chest for my treasure.
Aww.
They asked if you need to, do you want clothes? I'm like, for what? And they're like, well, in case you want him to be, I'm like, so we're going to burn clothes and him. I'm like, this is so bad for the environment. So I decided that he came in naked. He was leaving naked. So there we go. So my mother-in-law was just right there next to me. And she's like, I make arrangements. She took out her Amex. She's like, don't worry about it. So that was good. And then we were just really busy. I edited a photo montage for the memorial service, which I called an acknowledgement of grief. I wrote a 15-minute speech that I gave, complete with singing bowl and moments of super poignanty, because I was the communicator in the relationship. Because if you have two of this much talking, no one would invite us to parties. So I wanted his it was really small. It was Zoom, because I said like, oh, Rick would die if his memorial was a super spreader event, right? He was really serious about COVID. But once that happened, I did the memorial. I wrote a letter to his family and closest people, telling stories that I remember of each of them that he thought was important enough to tell me, and I thought was important enough to remember. So I wanted them to know that even though they were all really spread out, that like he loved them. And I got to thank them for making him who he was. And then once that was done, I lost my shit and became one with the couch for about 3 weeks. And his mom, my mother-in-law, who I was living with, said, stay as long as you want. And when you're ready, you can go home. But who's ever ready to go back to the scene of the crime, right? But then they were exposed to COVID. So like, worst story, but like, I got to go home because it was the safest space, not because I was ready, because I don't think I would have ever been ready. So
that's kind of like getting chucked out of the nest. They're like, fly, little birdie, you must go, even if you're not ready. And then she like fell to the ground and crawled back to her house.
Yeah. And I have serious widow brain. So in the beginning, I also have a sister-in-law who's a hospice nurse, or used to be. So she said, because I still don't have hunger nowadays, like, I enjoy food when I eat it. And I try to go for the best. But so I just made up a whole bunch of little rules for myself. So I did things that, statistically speaking, I knew were good for me. So being one with the couch is important, because when you have all those tools, when your life is demoed, right? Like a regular construction site, you don't just be like, oh, here are the rubbles and that's hammer stuff. No, because it's not time for tools. You have to kind of look around and be like, okay, this is what I'm working with. This is the reality. You have to take stock of the situation before you can apply those tools. So I gave myself time for that. And I'm lucky I could because of COVID. My business wasn't reopened yet. He died in July of 2020. So things were just starting to open up. I was talking to him about the pivot to include more trauma work, to add different modalities to support that. Perfect timing.
Right.
So it was a lot of overthinking and then sleeping on the couch. And I really quickly joined a non-religious widows group because it was really difficult having been an atheist for our entire relationship and for 10 years before that. I'm too factual. I'm like, really? Abraham wants to kill his baby and you want to start a whole religion? Yeah. I was too literal. I couldn't take that. So I used to I was raised Catholic, but my mom's side of the family was Buddhist. So I go to confession and be like, I killed a mosquito. And they're like, we're Catholic. We don't care.
We don't care.
So, yeah. What was the point of that? It was just funny. And
you started joining a
non-religious widows group.
Yeah.
And that was so helpful. I joined that about 3 weeks in, because statistically speaking, when you have support, you don't die. And I already had everything against me. I'm like childless, petless, faithless. And according to all grief material, I am really screwed.
At least you had lightsabers.
I have lightsabers, but I didn't have anyone to go ching with.
That's true.
Dang it. You're lightsaber partnerless.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I have so many people in wellness who want to be the one who cures me, right? So I got Reiki'd from afar. One of my friends would call me at night and she's like, I'm sending you happy thoughts. I'm like, I don't know. But I fell asleep. you know? So I'm like the type of atheist who doesn't believe but covers my bases just in case.
Right.
So, and then I couldn't get massage yet because I wasn't comfortable with it. But I already knew breath work. And I couldn't meditate. That sucked. But I think the biggest thing and this is controversial because I know a lot of people have suffered with cancer, but I got breast cancer and it saved my life. Because.
What? Whoa.
Why didn't I know this? Okay, wait. Go.
So, he died July 2020. And then by that January, I'm like, oh, I am still alive. I should probably get a physical, huh? So I go to the physical and the doctor's like, well, we need to smash your boobs because you're of age. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. Like, I am short and then it might not reach.
Oh, Lou, you are killing me right now.
And the doctor's like, yeah, but you're a little bit late. I'm like, COVID, not me, totally me, but COVID. And she said, well, and then I'm like, busted husband. And she's like, well, it's still important. So I went and I called my slightly older friends and cousins. I'm like, tell me all of it. Like, don't spare details. And they're like, oh, it's not actually that bad. I was like, okay. It should take about 15 to 20 minutes. So a half an hour and every single paddle later, I was like, wow, this doesn't feel right. And they're like, we're just going to look into let's do an ultrasound. And I'm like, wow, that's also not cool. And then they said, oh, it could be calcification. I'm like, or cancer. Runs in my family. We have a ton of cancer. Oh, the biopsy is the worst thing. You feel like a cow and a car getting an oil change all at the same time. And you can't even breathe through it. Like, they have you on this thing, the bad boob hanging down, and like 3 different people are touching it. And then they hoist you up. And then they're like, okay, we're going to stab you with a needle. Like, don't breathe. I'm like, whoa. I was planning on breathing exercises. What do you mean? And they're like, think of the beach. I'm like, screw you. So then they were able to find some cancer cells. But they're like, good news. If you're going to have cancer, this is like the best kind. I'm like, there's a whatever. It was all, and this was all about 8 months after Rick died. So I told the doctor, like, go ahead, unplug me. I'm ready. And she's like, you're not plugged into anything right now. And if we don't treat it, you have 20% of dying. So how about we treat it and give you 90% of living? I'm like, well, that's an option. And so I did genetic testing because I really wanted an ancestor to blame this on. And I couldn't. They're like, we have good news and bad news. I'm like, ah. But while I was waiting for the results, I saw an amazing doctor and she really broke down the options for me. And I knew I was hoping for the cancer. Like, I knew I wanted to do new boobs because I was hoping for the gene. So, like, I go in and I tell the doctor, okay, I'm ready for the fringe benefit boobs. Tell me about the boobs. Because I'm in my 40s. They were like, they served their due. They caught me an amazing guy. They're starting to head south, and that's fine. I mean, I appreciate them. They're beautiful. But, like, come on, dead husband and breast cancer. I get, like, perkier boobs. Seems like I earned it. But having to make a choice that was in my best interest 10 years from now or, like, in the future made me choose to live. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't ready. Darn it.
That's so funny that you say you weren't ready, because most people are like, I'm not ready to die. You're like, I'm not ready to choose to live.
Widows are like, I'm ready to get hit by the bus, though, so I can see. And 8 months into the death is fresh
and
still.
10 months to the day was when I had the double mastectomy. and the filler boobs put in, like tissue expander. That is some cool technology. Like, so they put in, and then you end up like a B cup or a smaller. And then like every couple weeks you go in, and the first time they have this little magnet thing, and they go boop, 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 and then they find the port, and then they put like a tire iron thing in, and they pump the air out, and then they put saline in. And every week or two, you get slightly bigger boobs.
What?
And then second surgery, you swap it out. It's like really cool. And there's like a YouTube video for it. My poor plastic surgeon, though, he was just like really overwhelmed, because I was like, if you can't save a nipple, I have the perfect solution. Because okay, anybody can borrow this idea, because I wasn't able to use it. Because if you're going to get it tattooed, why would you tattoo it as if nothing happened? So I was thinking like a big blue button, because I like blue, with like the 4 holes, not the 2, because then it'll look like a goat's eye, and that's evil. And then, so that will be there. And then next to it will be a little fairy with wings holding a big giant needle with some thread hanging down, as if they just sewed me together. Right? Perfect tattoo idea. I was ready.
Yeah.
And he's like, you do have a solution for everything.
I was half of a second thinking that you wanted them to put an actual button on there. And I was like,
no, because that would catch on clothes. I thought of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But also, I agree with you really strangely that you need a 4-hole button, not a 2-hole button. And I don't know why I would have feelings about that, but I agree.
But what about the other side? Same thing? Or you have to change it up?
The asymmetrical look is so in. I'll just have to wait every 20 years to show it, when it comes back in fad.
Wow. So breast cancer forced you to live in a way.
Yeah. And then I got to live the life of a cat, like on a recliner lift chair. Because when you're recovering from surgery, you had to like wake up, eat some food. We watched a lot of judge shows, so I was judging silently, which is a really cat thing.
Totally cat thing.
And then another nap. And then, that nap was exhausting. Another nap. But that gave me a lot of time to think about stuff and plan stuff. So I came up with like a collaborative community artistic expression project that's going to like build connection and belonging. It's in the works.
Yeah.
I did grief yoga through a cancer organization, and apparently people grieve their boobs. But if you have a dead husband, what are a couple of glands? So I did not participate in that support group because I've been accused of being flippant about cancer. And I can see why, except, like I didn't have the bad kind. I get to joke about it. Ish. I don't know. I feel bad that I'm a little bit flippant about like calling them fringe benefit boobs, especially since I have a cousin who got the much harder version of the boob thing and like boob cancer and is still going through some treatment stuff. So, but so I called up their person who does grief yoga, and I'm like, so I'm not sad about my cancer, but I am devastated about dead husband. Does this grief yoga help with that? And she's like, I'll give it a go. And that was so helpful. It's a beautiful practice that I became certified as a grief movement guide, because I didn't want to go through the 200 hours of yoga training just to be able to do this. So I just do this. So I'm going to start doing workshops. So it uses chair yoga type movements, breath, and sound to go through a cycle of compassionate transformation. So that's what I'm going to start.
Are you going to do in person and online, or just in person?
I think in person and online too. And I haven't figured out the technology yet, but I want to be able to do like a free one for widows. Because I'm like, we need fringe benefits, right? I got boobs. You guys should get like...
I got 3 dogs.
Right? And then... So, yeah, I also incorporate like a widow bonus for massages. Like whenever a widow comes in, they can have a back scrub. Cause like I really miss having someone to scrub my back.
Yes. Yes.
And I work out
yes.
and not to, well, totally oversharing, but back me, man. Like, what the hell?
I read the funniest, saddest story from somebody on one of the online widow groups, and she was like, I just used a spatula to put sunscreen on my own back, because how do you put sunscreen on your own back?
Oh my gosh.
She's like, I got out the mayonnaise scooper and like spread it on my own back, and I was like, that was really smart.
That's a great idea, though.
No, they got stuff for that. So there's this like microfiber cloth with handles on it, and you put 3 dollops of whatever lotion, and then you can like
shimmy it on down,
shimmy up and down.
Well, it gave me a great visual, and I was like laughing and sad
hilarious.
With her at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're slathering the mayonnaise on your back, but it was sunscreen.
That is so funny. So you're continuing to do your massage practice, and in addition to it, you're starting to do these grief movement.
I went back to work like only last October, and I couldn't do it in the old office because I was taking the same way home, and he was not there because he was dead. So I also wanted to set my intention for the future. So I rebranded my business and call it Bending Tree Wellness, because I want to incorporate the non-massage stuff. And bending tree is like being like a bamboo. You bend, but you don't break. So it's really plus I also do stretch services. So that's kind of fun. When I wasn't sure if I'd be able to massage again, because that requires holding space for people, at least the way I do it. I massage with my heart, and my heart is broken.
Oh.
So how did I do that? And one of my friends lost her boyfriend a month after I did, and she was massaging when she found out, and she couldn't take the time off because of finances. So she went back to work. So she was really helpful. Like, she's like, the first time I just cried. So the first massage I gave to a friend, and I cried. And I'm like, do you miss the heart? And she's like, no, because you also got skills. So I started back with my spot treatments, 25, 45 minute on one body part, like back, shoulder, neck. So I was helping the people who are in pain and rehabbing, because there's not a lot of feelings involved, right? So I'm doing cupping, I'm doing like scraping. I have a scraper named Wanda, because
Wanda the wand.
Yeah, because if you tell a client, like, would you like to come in for some instruments assisted soft tissue mobilization, and they're like, no,
I like some Graston technique, please.
Yes, Graston. Yeah. So, but then most of my clients have been with me for 10 years. And I had a handful of widows on my table regularly. So one of my widows called and said, I don't know if you're ready yet, but if you want to try one, like, just pack tissues and we'll wear masks, but it'll be safe. Like, try it out. I get it. Like, she had lost her husband in her 40s. She had kids. So I worked on the people who are in pain and then the widows. And then now I work on regular people, like a normal massage therapist.
How is that?
Yeah, that's really odd, especially since I've started seeing a few new people, and I'm like, hi, death and cancer. Like, because I feel like they need to know so I can explain all of this. Like the other day, I couldn't tell time, so I overlapped 2 sessions by 10 minutes. So that was fun.
Where you're like, I have widow brain, and they're like, I'm a grief civilian. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is I became widowed in COVID times, right? So a lot of people are talking about grief brain. So they might not have heard of widow brain, but more people, at least, people in my circle, they tend to know talk about that kind of stuff even before. And I have a pretty good widow following already before, although I'm mortified at I'm like, oh, try meditating. Screw that. Like, now I know.
Lou, I'm curious how you came upon the podcast.
So I'm going to rat her out. Kay. What's Kay's last name? She was in my non-religious widow group, and she's also in your group. And a while ago, I was like, I can't read. Like, I read 60 books during the 3 months of quarantine before he died. And then now I can barely read instructions on how to operate the coffee maker, because apparently I don't remember how to do that anymore. I'm kind of known for being punny. And like in the other group, I'm known for, like, I coined the term, like, is this a green juice day or an emotional support cheesecake kind of day? And like, so she's like, I really think you would like it. And I'm like, what's the name of the podcast? And they're like, Widow We Do Now. I'm like, oh, my people.
Yes.
And then I'm the type of person that reads the last chapter first before I get to the beginning. So I'm like, I want to know where they are now. So I started with the most recent one. And then I only just recently went back to the earlier ones. But then I listened to the episode with Sarah Kennedy.
Because your best friend.
Perfect.
Yeah,
you guys
like,
are very...
I don't think I think they're too nice. Like, they're funny, but I think I might break them. And then I heard that episode. I'm like, again, my people. So then I joined.
Well, I'm really glad that you decided to take a chance on us and that you listened to Sarah's episode and then reached out to us and joined the Widow Wives Club, because you are such a treasured addition and we count you among our friends. So thank you. Sorry that there's just not more swears. But if you want, you can say all of them right now. Like we let Sarah and Constance do that. Go for it.
No, it's really funny because my friends have noticed that I'm starting to replace quack and duck as my swear words. So I go around and like the other day I was like, quack and duck. Which is probably better for business.
How would you assess yourself right now? You're what, a couple years out?
Yeah.
It's almost a couple years, not quite,
almost,
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like 80% functional with a 17% chance of random tears and then occasional couch days. But I allow that because I do, like, green juice days are days where I do everything in my power to put an effort. Because, you use the healthy hormones to hack your body because it doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and dead husband,
Yeah.
And because I do that, I also allow myself emotional support cheesecake days where I need to shut down. So I feel like I find kind of a balance, except when I don't have it.
That sounds fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm almost ready to give advice.
Maybe when you hit the 2-year mark.
Perhaps that's the magical mark. Level 3.
July 2022.
Anybody have cheat codes? Tell me.
Okay, Lou, we got to ask you the question. The one and only question that is...
First of all, do you eat cheese? If so...
Yes.
Okay. Favorite cheese?
All of them. Does that count?
Yes.
No, I was going to go with the one I ate last, which was goat cheese. That was in a quiche. But I'm like, but it's not by itself. But I don't know. The one, I do like, nope. All of them. Final answer.
Solid answer.
Lou, this was just as entertaining as I imagined it was going to be. So thank you for just letting us into your head for a minute and letting us hear your full story. It had its ups and downs. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lou. We hope everybody listening has enjoyed Lou as much as we have. She's in the Widow Wives Club. Every time she writes something, it's going to be great. So come join us in the Widow Wives Club if you want to see more of Lou. She's there every day. Just kidding. I don't know that. And it's a private Facebook group. You got to answer the questions to get in for realsies. If you want to keep the podcast going, will you consider joining our Patreon? It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you'd like to buy us tacos, please go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And you can give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts if none of those things work for you.
It's free. But a nice one, please. We have feelings. And not enough cheesecake.
Until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Lou.
And we are two young widows and one young widow who is making her ancestors proud. And we're all trying to figure out widow.
We
do
now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.